All right, hey everyone. Welcome to 6x6 episode 2. I am I7, joined once again by Matt, Mister, and Luke. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Kuwei Luke. I play for UCF.
Yeah, so super excited to have our special guest. He's going to give us a little bit of that perspective that we need. And so if you're tuning in for the first time, it is only our second episode. This is 6x6. We're going to do 6 topics, 6 minutes each. And that's how we're going to do it. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. We're going to start off with the operator changes from Burnt Horizon. So, with the new patch notes, we got some updates to 6 different operators. Those
A lot of
being,
updates.
yeah, Ash got her ACOG removed. Legion goo mine damage down to 8 damage per tick from 4, or the opposite
Going
of
from
that.
8
Down
damage
down to
to
4,
4.
down to
Yeah.
4 from 8. Yeah. Um, Dokkaebi, her phone goes to voicemail now, which is great. Originally it was 18 seconds. Now it's also down to 12. That was like 3 days later. They updated it to
Yeah,
12.
after they appended it.
Yeah, and running through a mute jammer now also silences the phone. You don't have to start in the range of the mute jammer. Um, Clash lost her muzzle brake on the SMG9. Maverick had an increase to his gadget swap time, so it takes longer for him to pull out and put away his torch. And then Capital, they increased his AOE and decreased his damage to make him more of like a zone control rather than like dropping a nuke on somebody.
Hmm.
And then they immediately reverted it. That was going to be my pick. That was the most influential operator change, but doesn't
Oh,
exist
yeah.
anymore. The only thing that he's left with is the new M249 optic, that 2.5 scope that he and Gridlock have.
Oh, yeah. No, there's plenty of good changes in there. I mean,
Yeah.
I especially like the mute one. I mean, Mutes is he's gone from adding in the SMG 11 to his toolkit, so having the shotgun isn't such a downside anymore. The fact that
Mm-hmm.
he still has the C4, and now his mute jammer is going to help with Dokkaebi calls. Like he's kind of buffed up just a little bit. It's not insane buff, but it's a little bit,
Yeah, that's true.
tiny one.
And I guess I really like that because it gives a legitimate reason to actually consider picking mute over bandit.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it used to be that the only time you'd ever pick a mute is if you're playing like laundry and you want to try to jam the hatch. And now with Cade in the competitive scene as well, like there's no there some power got taken away from mute there, so it is good to see a little bit added to him. I do think
Definitely.
just the automatic hanging up, like in my own games, that has been hugely influential for me. I love that.
Oh yeah. Luke, you got anything to add? You've been kind of quiet, dude. I get it, you're
The
the
quiet
guest, but
person,
you
man.
got to speak too.
No, I gotcha. I agree completely with Mute. Even though it's currently in quarantine, Mute really got boosted as far as how many people play him, especially when Lime was in the mix. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that once he comes back, a lot more people are going to be playing Mute, especially with the whole Dokkaebi thing. I think it's an extremely nice addition. Personally, I think that changing it down to 12 seconds is a huge breath of fresh air. A lot of professional players, from what I've asked, they don't actually notice the Dokkaebi call, but I think it is for those newer players. I think it is a nice touch that it just hangs up automatically.
Yeah, so I
I
mean, if
mean,
if professional players are hardly even noticing it, that's a huge nerf to Dokkaebi. Because yeah, I mean, if you can just handle if you're an anchor and you can just handle listening to a buzzing sound for 12 seconds, that's all that Dokkaebi has to offer, other than hacking cams. That's obviously important, but um, like that whole aspect of her kit is kind of removed from the competitive scene. It's only good for roam clear at this point. That's the only person that would actually have to worry about silencing that before it does it on its own.
oh yeah, and it has to be aggressive room clear now, especially with that 12 seconds. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you have to be aggressive in those few seconds, or just like wait just the moments where they think that they're safe and they start to mute their phone, and that's the moment when you strike. But if you're sitting on site and you're an anchor and you get a phone call, you just kind of look at the angle you need to be holding and like, come on. I'm waiting.
Yeah.
Come on, anytime now.
Yeah.
You could walk towards me, or if you're sitting on a mute jammer, it's like, well, what's even the point? And I mean, still, you barely see echoes, so like, how impactful is he into any of that? It's like, he doesn't have to worry about it anyways.
Yeah. Cheap bastard. Um, one
True.
more reason Echo's overpowered. He's so good.
He's such a great operator, but I mean, you got all these changes coming up, and it's like you got to start worrying about the new ops coming in. You got to start worrying about them and who you want to ban. I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't really see the big impact from Cade like this week and last week. It wasn't like
That's
really
true.
crazy. We haven't seen lots of Nomad play. I think that's just because teams haven't practiced it. They they haven't really gotten a chance to get adjusted to it. And
Yeah.
I
We're
mean, it's a competitive league for college,
starting
so
to run out of time, but there's one thing that we really need to hit because I think Clash and Maverick, those changes are really minimal. Capitao, still, because of the reversion, still very minimal. Legion Goo Mines, I don't think it changes his playstyle at all. It was never a damage threat. I think it's fine. It keeps him where he was supposed to be, but it doesn't really change how you play him. Ash ACOG, do you think it's huge or do you think it's really minor? I think it's really minor. I
minor.
haven't.
That's minor.
Not a big deal.
No, it's
Luke
huge.
It's
doesn't.
huge. All right.
It's huge. Yeah. A lot of people have gotten accustomed to ACOG. In
Mm-hmm.
competitive scene, you don't really say ACOG that much, especially in the higher level of play. However, um, especially in the collegiate scene, I believe there's going to be a somewhat of a shift from Ash more onto a Zofia. I feel as though a lot more teams are going to start bringing Zofia,
Yeah.
especially with that the type of utility that she has. I feel as though the ACOG change is going to be big.
That'll be super exciting to keep an eye on. I definitely think Zofia is a good option. So we got to move on to topic number 2, which is our new operators, not Cade and Nomad, who have just been introduced into CR6 play, but we're going to talk about Mozzie and Gridlock. Um, sort of looking towards the future, whether they'll have a big impact on the collegiate and professional scenes, but also just for your ranked games because they're going to be in those, 2 weeks ago. So uh, we've got a little bit to work with on what we think about them.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no, and they're gonna be. I think personally, I feel like there's some of the more balanced operators we've seen in a long time to be entered into
yeah.
the scene. I mean, you've seen like with Blackbeard when he came in. Oh God, we all know that lifetime with his shield, that was horrible. The last
Mm,
time I think we had the really biggest impact like that was when we saw Ella for 6 months, reigning
that's
her
true.
King Supreme, destroying everyone. That was I would have to say hell. Honestly, it was tough, but these new operators, it feels like they've moved in pretty smooth and they're not really crazy. I mean, yeah, we've seen Lion with him more, even more recent, but I feel definitely that this is probably one of the more balanced seasons that these operators are entering in on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that at least from my personal experiences, I haven't played as much as in some past seasons, but over a couple dozen games, I haven't felt a ton of impact from Gridlock. I know that that's something that Matt disagrees with me on, so we'll get to that. But I haven't felt like I haven't been hit by a trap yet. Like I haven't gotten stuck. There's never been a time where I've been pressured in a ranked game um, to to be forced into that situation. I feel like Gridlock right now might be a little underpowered. I think Mozzie has very clear strengths, and I do think that the player base will start to adapt, and he'll become a little bit less powerful like that. But I agree. I think Mozzie is incredibly well balanced, and I think he's at like a perfect power level. He shouldn't need to change going into the future. He's going to be worth picking, but not must pick. And I think that's really great to see that. Like I think UB nailed this one.
Oh yeah. Go ahead and throw your opinion in before I completely
So
destroy the gridlock
I got you.
argument.
So I'll start with Mozzie. In my opinion, I think especially in professional play, it's just going to be a matter of what type of trade-off do you want? Do you want to risk it all, or do you want to play it safe? Because with Mozzie, yes, drones are extremely helpful. However, with Mozzie, people just won't drone in prep phase. That's pretty much all you need to do. And then when you do drone in, usually you'll have someone right behind that drone ready to trade that drone out or trade a player if they're C. So I think Mozzie, he's an effective roamer, especially with his recoil, but it's a huge trade-off to bring him instead of like a Legion or even a Cav. I think it's a huge trade-off. Now for Gridlock, I think her recoil is insane. On the LMG, with that amount of bullets, there's literally almost no recoil. As for Gridlock, though, I think as an operator herself with her utility, um, I think they need to change the utility of every other operator on attack. The reason being is because I feel as though a lot of operators, or too many operators, have claymores, and that sort of stops the roam, which somewhat makes Gridlock redundant. Because yes, her ability is effectively trying to cut off the roam, but if you have too many claymores, then you just have two operators that clash, and then you don't need Gridlock because you already have her utility.
Yeah, you just
So I feel as though with
pick another
yeah,
operator that does that and something else, right?
precisely. So I feel as though with Gridlock, they just, in my opinion, they need to start taking the claymores back out instead of giving like IQ a claymore. I think they need to take that away. Maybe give her a nade. That might be a little bit too overpowered.
Give
But
her
maybe,
a mom. We
give it-
bullied
yeah.
her enough.
But yeah, definitely taking away those claymores and giving them something else. I think that'll open up Gridlock a lot more.
Oh yeah, definitely. The only thing I really feel like with Gridlock right now, and I mean, you said it, I7. It seems like you go to play against her in ranked or in casual, and it just doesn't seem like she's being impactful. You got to remember, this is the beginning of the season. These operators haven't been had a chance really to shine, and that's why when you see like Ubisoft, they look at all the stats from like plat up. That's where you're going to see the most impactful play from these operators. Is where people are actually that's your pro players, and then some of the higher level players are playing at that series where they play it and they know what they want to do with that. And I feel like she's just one of those operators that people are either throwing her utility to waste or just isn't using it properly. And it's after plant denial. You can toss it and it's like, instead, why would I have to plant a claymore when I can just toss this into a hallway and forget about it? If someone walks into it, it's going to be heard because it sounds really loud, and their person's getting hurt, and then they have to even shoot it out. It's really annoying. It's more annoying for maps, kind of like Conflict. You get a plant in office, and you chuck it down the hall. So I feel like she's really good, and it's just it hasn't been seen to be impactful yet.
Show up more in the competitive scene going forward as we get more coordination around it, maybe. All right, so topic number 3, we got to go right on to. We're gonna talk a little bit about how casters and players, like go into a matchup that they might not necessarily know the teams very well. So like, Matt and I as casters, we see this all the time. There's 96 teams in this league, and we can't keep track of them all the time.
I don't know everyone.
Yeah, whereas Luke has a different side of it where he'll be one of the teams, and he's got to figure out like how to approach somebody else in his group. That's where I want to start. I want to know what you and your team do to prepare for matches against teams that you may have never faced before.
So mainly, coming into the match, every match that we play, no matter what the team is, we always play it like it's the grand final because that's what we're striving for. You don't know how good a team is, especially in this day and age with Siege and the changing metas. You don't know how good a team is no matter what, unless you've scrimmed them. And until you've scrimmed them or played them, it's basically a 50-50 no matter what. With Siege being such a complex game, there's so many factors at stake that you always play it like it's the grand finals. You play it safe if you need to. Sometimes, if it's like a 6-0, sometimes you can mess around, but even then, you still want to give it your all. So with those unknown teams, we just go all in, no matter what.
So
that's really good.
Yeah, well, question for you: is that your opinion, or does your entire team subscribe to that?
Most of my entire team subscribes to that.
Yeah, see, there's always that one guy.
Yeah, there are a couple of players that just they say like, hey, we can chillax. This team's not as good, but even then, like the other players, they turn around and they're like, no, this is serious. This is still a league match. You need to come prepared. You need to show it your all. We're not just representing our team, we're representing our school, the entire league itself. So we tend to give it our all no matter what.
Yeah,
That's great.
I think I definitely approach stuff the same sort of way, or at least when I did play. Like, I always wanted to go in, playing like as a grand final, like you said. I do think that there is some value to the opposite of seeing a team and saying they're not, they haven't had the good enough performance or whatever, and as a confidence move, playing a little looser, playing a little bit BM, because like some players really just feed off of that, and will continue to improve their own performance by playing without respect for their opponents, and it gives themselves more confidence. So I can see why it happens. Not a huge proponent of it. Um, uh, yeah, I would much rather take the measured approach in a match, but to some extent, I know it's really like a gray area. But there are definitely teams that take that too far and get bit for it, which is why Luke's approach is definitely the safer, the the more likely to be successful, for most teams at least.
Oh yeah. I
Um,
mean, versus like I'm even a team captain, so I mean I know kind of you go to pick up against another team. You're like, maybe we should practice, and this is some team that we should take serious, or either we're gonna crush them or they're gonna crush us. Let's have fun and
mhm.
and actually do something silly, do something that doesn't they're not gonna expect, because that's the last thing you expect from a team who's crushing. They come down to this lower level team and they're like, hey, we're gonna destroy you, and then we're like, hey, how you doing today? And you pick Tachanka, and you're just like, what? So there's things like that. But as far as like it comes to casting like the teams, you go into like a match, and like a UC Davis versus San Diego, that's going to be a crazy insane game. The game
Yeah.
before it was like, did you really know that it was going to be that we have that special formula that lets us know that this is going to be an okay match to watch and cast? But can you really say, do you know who's going to make the insane plays? Do you know who's going to do really well? Who's going to come out on top? You can't really say that. You don't really know whose map is their favorite. Can't really say.
Yeah, I think like from the caster side, at least for me, I mean, obviously, if there's VODs you're watching, if there's stats, we're taking a look at the stats. But um, like that formula that we use to pick the matches apparently has been working, because we've had some really close matches. We've had a lot of
Oh
overtimes
yeah,
over the last couple weeks.
like the
Um,
past 3 weeks, I think, right?
yeah,
Lots of them.
so like that has really helped casters as well, because we can, if you know one team and you know that the teams are really evenly matched, then you can extrapolate. Then you can say, based on this team and their stats, and this team is supposed to be really similar to them, and I know how this team works, I know how they communicate, I know their style. You can take a look at where are the differences in the stats, how does that probably reflect in their playstyle. You can start to build a narrative a little bit out of that, and as long as you're not too confident in it, as long as you leave yourself a little bit of wiggle room, then you can make it work throughout the match. And that's time for that one.
Oh
So
yeah.
we've got to move on. We're going to talk about dark horses in the league. So at least my definition for dark horse would be like a team that has a near equal chance of being successful as the top teams in the league, but isn't ranked that high. Um, so I
Yeah,
mean,
I just gathered a little list for this one. But
yeah.
I know I didn't even list one of the teams that, because we talked about it last episode where I said Irvine, because I loved watching them play, and I didn't list it up here because I mean they're at 12 points, but I definitely feel like they're a possible team to see. I mean, yeah, they have that one loss, but I still feel that one loss isn't enough to constitute that you're doing really bad. You can just have those
Yeah.
really bad nights where let's say you have to bring in some subs and they're not as good as you normally do, and you haven't practiced with them. There's things that can go wrong. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's a college league, but there's some teams that definitely you can see that there's something going on that they could come back from it and show up. I mean, I have 4 teams here on the list with West Virginia, Norwich, Archon, and then Houston.
That's Akron.
Akron. I always
yeah,
say
you always do, but it's fine.
I always do
I
it.
always catch you, but I didn't see it written down wrong until you just said it. So I didn't catch it soon enough.
That's fine.
I think on this one, my dark horse, my number one team that I think doesn't have the results to reflect their skill is Kennesaw State. They were really successful in the playoffs last year. I believe they were out in the semifinals. They lost to UCSD. Right now, we're still on week 5 stats. We're recording this a couple days before the extended week 6 ends. So week 5 stats, they are 3 wins and 2 ties. So clearly the results, they could be much worse. They could be a little bit better. So they're not gonna make a top 5 teams list. But I think that their roster, when I look down the line, there's no weak spot. We've seen them play last year. We've seen them play this year on stream. They look like a really solid team. It surprises me that they have 2 ties. I kind of wish that I had the ability to watch all of those games, but that's my gut instinct says Kennesaw State is going to be way better than their stats say they are right now.
Oh yeah, Luke, you got some teams that you're hiding from us?
Personally, I think Houston and Akron. I think both of those teams, with a little bit of an adjustment to how they play, maybe a change in a couple of the strats that they have, I feel as though they can take it at least to the semifinal. I feel as though Houston has a lot to offer. Sometimes they might just get caught up in the moment. I don't know for sure, but from what I've seen, their play style has a lot to offer. So I feel as though Houston over Akron. Um, I feel as though Houston can go a really long way if they definitely change a little bit of their play style.
Yeah, I mean they did play well the few times that I've seen them get streamed. I haven't really got to see a whole lot of them, but
Yeah.
I mean I think everyone wants to see some of those top tier teams, but they also want to see their own team streams. So it all comes down to stream schedule. But I mean we're still, like you said, it's only week 5 because it's extended right now. But definitely looking forward to the next couple weeks to see where everyone goes and keeping up to date with these teams who are really either taking off or coming back. You said like with the dark horses that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be 2 weeks from now that we do power rankings again, something like that. I had a rough schedule set up, and yeah, I'm looking forward to that because right now, with the week extended, I'm sitting here looking at the stats pages like, when's the update? Like, when are they gonna tell me which of these teams has got another win on the board? Because there are some really close groups. There are some teams that you just don't quite feel like you have enough information to make the call on, and so yeah, I'm every day I look at this stat sheet and I'm like, I just want to know more. So yeah, right now it is kind of on gut feeling, because we don't have everything that we could want from stats. We haven't seen the full season play out, but
we need more stats. We need more stats.
Give us more. But we can't speed up time. We just gotta wait for them to happen. I think. I guess I can share my opinion on this list that you had here. Is that honestly, I do think West Virginia, is a really good team. I think they're good enough that I wouldn't even call them a dark horse. I just think that they are one of the top teams that everybody should be looking at, and I don't think that there's any reason to take anything really away from them at this point. yeah, I just think that that's
I just kind of threw him in there just because I felt like we needed a few teams, and I that looked like one of the teams like I haven't seen a lot of. I saw them play once, and
that's true.
that's about it. And so I feel like I just want to see more. I want to see more. It's waiting for the next update. That's what's going on here.
Yeah,
We're
they're not a team I'm
waiting.
super familiar with, but I've got confidence in West Virginia at this point based on their results and what I have seen. So, all
That
right,
sounded like
moving
the
on.
timer.
Yeah, it is time to talk about the map of Oregon. And
I
this is
hate
another
Oregon.
one. Matt and I just won't agree on
Oh Lord.
anything. I love Oregon. It is my favorite map to play. It is my top 3 maps to cast. It's just the greatest map in Rainbow Six. Matt disagrees. I want to know what Luke thinks because I haven't heard from him yet.
So, in my opinion, so I have like an A, B, and C when it comes to listing maps. A tier is the highest, B middle, and then C is the lowest. Oregon for me is in that B tier. It's a mid-range map in my opinion. The strats they don't necessarily take a lot of thought into it, and it mainly comes down to coordination of the push, but overall gun skill. The roam clear is extremely simple. You just push west to east. It doesn't necessarily take that much involvement. Um, in my opinion, it's not necessarily a complex map. It is an enjoyable map, but I just feel as though it's been in the Pro League map pool for so long that just everyone has come accustomed to it. So I feel as though it's not a bad map. It's just I think it's time for something new.
It's been figured out. Like the formula has been set.
Yeah.
People know what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. I completely. I do not like casting the map, playing it. I would burn the map if I had a choice to take it out of ranked. It would be out of ranked. I I personally just don't like it. I think it's. I mean, you said it. It's too simple. It's too overdone. It's kind of like everyone who played House when the game first came out, and everyone who's played Plane when the game first came out. Everyone understands that how that map works and how you have to play it. There's no big changes to be had on it. I mean, yeah, we have Kaid, so downstairs is now the more viable option to go first
Hmm.
than going upstairs. Yes, that happened, but going to cast, it's like, well, it's do they roam? Nope, they're gonna stay on site. All right, they're gonna get rushed. Nope. Okay, everyone's just gonna do the same thing, the same exact way, the same time. And anytime you see anything different, like maybe a spawn peek from back tower, you still expect it, but it's lovely to see something out of the normal because it's like everyone walks into the building and no one's dead within the first couple seconds. There's no threat I feel off the beginning, and so it's kind of like boring to cast, especially. But playing it, I you get used to those strats and you expect it and you try to play the same thing, and then it just comes down to gunplay. So if someone's positioned ever so slightly better and gets a ever so slightly better shot on you, you're so mad about it because you know every single bit and corner of that map is like, why did that happen? So I don't know. I just hate that map.
I
I would
think
never want to
that
see it.
the exact reasons that you guys don't like it are why I love it. Um, like, I mean, I come from Counter Strike. They haven't had map updates in like 20 years. Like, I mean, they'll tweak them, they'll update them in visual updates, but like it's the same core design for decades. So, I mean, it doesn't get stale to me. And what I do love about it is the level of like formulaic, um, like well defined strategies on both sides. Um, like people know what works, and I also think that like you Luke mentioned, like the simplistic way that you roam clear. I can see how that can be like really frustrating for somebody who doesn't really like that, I guess. I don't know. I know that was kind of a circular sentence, but like I can see why you wouldn't like that. But I really do because for me, when I'm playing Rainbow Six, one of my least favorite things is that like with destruction elements and all sorts of gadgets and all this stuff. There's so much depth to the game as a whole that it can feel kind of cheap sometimes. Punch out a peak hole that somebody doesn't see. They come around the corner, you shoot them. It feels a little bit cheap. It's not cheap. Like it's in the game. It's you have tools. You have drones. Like it's that is there's a clear skill in the chaos of Rainbow Six. But I am not a chaotic player. I am a very measured. I want to take it one step at a time. I want to check down the list and do everything right and win the round because of that. Oregon is the perfect map to do that. Step one, roam clear. Step two, set up your take. Step three, your hard breach goes off. Step four, you get the plant. Step five, you go to the places that you've set up. You hold your post plant. Opposite is true of the defense. You've got your checklist and you go down it. And if you do it better than the other team, you win the round. That's what I love about Oregon. That's why it's the best map. For the exact same reason it's your least favorite map.
And I think that more comes down to the fact that I'm a roam player. So I love maps where I can go out and there's 3 ways to get back to site. I can get back to site in a heartbeat if I need to. And there's ways for me to escape you trying to roam clear me. And I think that's why I mostly hate Oregon, is because there's 2 ways to go anywhere. I want to go from, let's say I'm in garage and I want to go to small tower. There is only 2 ways initially to get there, and that's go through kitchen, go through the hallway. The second you get to dining, that's when it's like, well, now you're out of time.
Yeah, you're out of time. Indeed. We're moving on.
Perfect. Switch over.
Yeah, last topic. Rainbow Six Siege is a pretty new esport. This is second season for CollegiateR6, first calendar year, really, that Collegiate Rainbow Six has been popular. Had teams and had competition for it. So what do you guys think about Rainbow Six compared to other esports, whether it's collegiate or professional level? Your opinions, your concrete proofs. What do you think?
I mean, I've got my heart set for MOBAs because I've played and watched 4 or 5 years of Dota 2 tournaments. I love watching the casters. I love watching the games. I love just the competitiveness. That's why I have it written here in the note. Competitive neighbors. That tournament is a competitive neighbor because everyone plays it the same way because they have that. The game isn't the same in a sense because of the variety of heroes, the items, and all that fun stuff. But compared to like Siege, everyone is in it to win, and it's fighting to the death for it. There is so much that can happen, and it's not a one-sided game. You can have comeback victories. You can have all that fun strategy in it, and it's so versatile. I love that fact. I mean, yeah, MOBAs have bigger prize pools, but that's because they've been around longer. They have bigger followings currently. Whereas, you go to some of the other games, it's like, the following's not there, but it's growing. And, competitive Rainbow Six is growing exponentially, I feel.
Yeah, it's really fast, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Siege is absolutely taking off. Like, from the collegiate scene, that's where I'm most involved, so that's where I know the most. Like, I think it's already past everything. Honestly, I think that right now Siege has the most interest. We'll see if it stays, if the interest stays, because having built up so fast, I'm a little worried that over the next 2 years it's going to die out again. It's going to be sort of a fad. I don't think that it's going to be. It just concerns me. But yeah, it grew out of nowhere, and it's huge and it's fantastic. Pro League isn't yet rivaling stuff like CS:GO or League of Legends, but it's plenty popular in its own right.
Mm-hmm. Luke, you got any interesting ones? Are you still saying you're so quiet, man?
So Siege, in my opinion, I think it has tremendous potential to be a lot bigger than CS:GO. And that's tough for me to say because I came from CS:GO and I still love CS:GO to death. But with games like CS:GO, they're extremely fast paced. It's like football in a sense, where you have the play, then it's the end of the play, and then you reset, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
that 14 to 30 seconds of just intense, like who knows what's going on, but people enjoy it. With Siege, I feel as though there's so many factors at play that with games like CS:GO and games like Overwatch, it's somewhat simple. There's two bomb sites, they need to get there. The only thing that you have to worry about is whether you can aim, what utility you can use, and how well you can coordinate with the team. With Siege, it's somewhat similar. However, you have the operator abilities, you have all these things at play that just make it a little bit more complicated. But in the case of MOBAs, it's somewhat the same thing. You have all these different champions in like League of Legends, for example, where you have all these different abilities, all these different counters. However, the map, it's just one map. It's
Mm-hmm.
extremely simple. So that's sort of the counterpart to it. MOBAs are extremely simple because of the map. CSGO is extremely simple because of the objective. I think with Siege, they might just need to quote unquote dumb it down a little bit for the new people, and then I think it'll just take off tremendously.
Yeah, I guess I see it as kind of like a spectrum where on one end we've got MOBAs, that's like it's metagame. It's all about stratting and counter stratting. Like you said, it's one map. It's the same game every time, but you're never going to play the same game twice because you're going to set it up differently. Counter Strike's
I
the
feel
opposite.
Overwatch might go above even MOBAs
You
I agree.
think?
because the, those
I put
that
Overwatch in the
the
middle
well,
and
see, it's you're talking
Siege
about
as
meta.
just a good Overwatch. Um,
Let's I put it this way. So MOBAs would be dead center. They're great all around. There's so much variety that can be had because the metas are always changing in those MOBAs most of the time. There's so many major changes. There's so many things being added at the same time. They're not they're not stable. You have Overwatch. It's so stable in the fact that once one thing is added and it's decided that that's the meta within like a couple weeks, you see that continuously over and over and over.
that's true.
Siege, you see one change happen and life goes to hell. Everything changes. That is like on
Yeah.
the opposite end, and I feel like if there is a change in CS:GO, that's what happens. But it's kind of like in a stable spot because everything's just it's a good life,
All
and
right.
it's been around.
Yeah, well, that's gonna be it for us. That's the end of our sixth topic. Really flew by here. It was good. We good
That last one
conversation all
definitely flew
through.
by.
Yeah, I could continue that conversation for a long time. But no, that's all the time we've got. Um, so thank you very much, Matt and Luke, for joining us. It's
Thank you.
been great. Um, and I don't think that there is a whole lot more to say. We are going to be continuing with the I think the release schedule that we've sort of figured out for 6x6. There could be some changes to that, so just keep an eye out. It'll definitely be announced in the CR6 Discord, and we'll be posting it out on social medias as well. So we'd love to have you guys join us again next week. We'll keep talking, and as we said last week as well, tweet at 6x6 podcast. Let us know what you want to hear. Let us know if you want to be on the show. And we will see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.